Gravity Falls has always been an interesting watch that took us across the adventures of the Pine twins, Mabel and Dipper. But what if I told you the story isn't really about these Pine twins, but another set of twins? That's right, it's not Mabel and Dipper, but Uncle Stan and his twin brother Stanford. Yes, the same Bimbo Jimbo Uncle Stan that runs the strange mystery shack in the odd, otherworldly town of Gravity Falls. You see, Stanley and Stanford, or as we call them Stan and Ford, were twins born in the town of Glasyard Beach, New Jersey during the 1960s. Their parents owned a pawn shop and happened to be an incredibly strict duo of parents, with the mom being a literal pathological liar and a phone psychic. Not really a good combo. Nevertheless, the two boys were quite close, exploring the town's beach, and one day even came across a cave that held a broken ship. The twins made it their goal to fix it up and use it to sail around the world together to hunt for hidden treasures. Sadly, throughout his life, Ford was bullied for having 6 fingers, but he always knew his brother Stan had his back no matter what. Now, these twins were like night and day. Stan was a bit of a mischief maker who barely managed to graduate, whereas Ford was a brainiac who aced all his classes and ruled the science competitions. Things got really exciting when Ford built an awesome perpetual motion machine for a science fair and got a shot at his dream college, West Coast Tech. Only, this wasn't good news for Stan, who was still stuck on the promise they made about sailing together. Sadly for him, Ford really wanted to go to college. One night, a frustrated Stan accidentally wrecked Ford's experiment at the gym. And guess what? It caused the college admission team to reject Ford's application. Clearly, the family was beyond angry for ruining their chance of becoming rich and thought Stan did it all on purpose. Now that's some toxic family. Poor Stan literally got kicked out of the house, and it left him determined to prove them wrong and make it big as a businessman. So Stan embarked on a wild journey, trying to get rich and show everyone he could succeed. Only his products flopped, and he had to travel incognito with fake identities to avoid trouble. This led to some crazy adventures and, believe it or not, even some jail time in different countries, including Colombia. Meanwhile, Ford gets accepted into Backup S'more University and graduated at the top of his class, acquiring a grant for his scientific research, and eventually decided to study anomalies. He was obviously attracted to them because of his 6-fingered hands, and after some research, he pinpointed the place in the world with the highest amount of anomalies, Gravity Falls, and moved there in the mid-1970s. And this is exactly where the story begins, when he met the show's ultimate villain, Bill Cipher. Now, Bill existed long ago, even before the events of the series took place. He came from a strange place called the Second Dimension, but he absolutely hated living there. So, to liberate his dimension, he caused a chaotic mess, burning everything down, even affecting his own parents and everyone he knew. But Bill's thirst for power didn't stop there. He managed to take control of a wild and shifting place called the Nightmare Realm. This intergalactic foam between dimensions was like the Wild West with no rules or consistency. Sadly, it was doomed to collapse. And that's when Bill heard about a prophecy saying he could merge the Nightmare Realm with a third dimension, and decided to get in touch with humans to make this happen. He disguised himself as Bill Cipher and set his sight on a future that would become the Gravity Falls we all know today. But the clever natives of Gravity Falls found a way to defeat him using a zodiac with 10 symbols, and even left behind ancient cave paintings with special symbols that could stand up to the powerful demon, but most importantly, a warning to never read the incantation that would summon Bill aloud. Now, Ford was determined to set Bill loose. He got help from locals to build his house and recorded all his research in 3 journals. For 6 years, he investigated unnatural creatures and oddities in Gravity Falls. Eventually, he grew frustrated and desperate for any clue when he hit a roadblock and couldn't explain how these strange things happened. During this time, Ford finally discovered the ancient cave left behind by the natives, filled with stories about Bill Cipher. And just as you would expect, this dude ignored all warnings and set the incantation aloud, bringing Bill into his mind. Bill immediately saw Ford's flaws, the lack of close friends, and the perfect environment for manipulation. He made him believe that the anomalies in Gravity Falls all came from another dimension. And with Bill's help, Ford created a gateway to this other dimension under his home, and even asked his college friend Fiddleford McGucket for technical help. Once the portal was done, they tested it, and McGucket almost got pulled in. Although Ford saved him, McGucket started acting strangely, speaking in backward codes and giving a weird warning about a one-eyed beast. The dude went all bonkers, and once he recovered, he quit the project for good. Poor Fiddleford found himself haunted by his encounters, which made him very paranoid and unable to sleep. To erase his agony, he ended up inventing a memory gun that could erase his memories of these encounters and couldn't even remember anything within 4 days. He got so inspired by this invention that he created the Blind Eye Society in Gravity Falls. The society aimed to help others forget their worst memories and regrets, since Gravity Falls was always terrorizing its locals here and there with all the oddities. Unfortunately, Fiddleford's constant encounters with paranormal entities and relying too much on his invention started to affect his sanity, and eventually he fell off from his family and turned into a crazy old man named Old Man McGucket, Gravity Falls' local crook that lived in the garbage. Meanwhile, the Blind Eye Society ended up being led by Blind Yvonne, who was literally cunning and wicked. Some actually speculate that Fiddleford met Blind Yvonne when he was still working for Ford and secretly recruited him into the Society of the Blind Eye without Ford realizing it. He slipped him a card with the society's symbol. However, in the show, Fiddleford founded the society after parting ways with Ford, and after he erased his memory, basing the symbol on a crossed-out blueprint of the portal. Another theory regarding the memory gun is stating that it was made to wipe the memory of construction workers that helped them build the portal. This was done to keep the project a secret, and then Fiddleford even used it on Ford so he wouldn't scold him. But this is highly unlikely, since in Society of the Blind Eye, Fiddleford insists that he was the first test subject. It is, however, possible that being in close proximity to the rays from the memory gun caused them to forget about its test entirely. Nevertheless, once Fiddleford left, Ford already grew suspicious of Bill, and it led to a confrontation between them. Finally, the dude comes to his senses, realized that Bill had tricked him. All along, Bill's intention was to use the portal to act as a gateway to the Nightmare Realm, allowing the demon to bring chaos and destruction into their universe. Ford grew immensely horrified and immediately started shutting down the project. He attempted to destroy all knowledge of the portal, but once Ford began to hear whispers and felt that he was losing his sanity, he asked the only person he could trust, his good old brother Stan, to come to Gravity Falls. Of course, the moment Stan received Ford's invitation, he rushed to Gravity Falls without a question, in hopes that he could resume his dreams together with his brother, who he had missed so much. But once he arrived, he saw that Ford had already hidden the last 2 journals and asked them to hide the first journal far away from Gravity Falls to prevent anyone from being able to operate the portal. Hearing this, Stan totally lost it. How could Ford even ask him to move all the way to the other side of the world after they had just met for the first time in 10 years? He got so mad that he even tried to burn the journal off, making the brothers get into a tussle and causing the portal to accidentally activate. Like, whoops. Though Ford really tried to apologize, Stan punched him in anger, cursing him for being a failure of a brother. However, he would regret that punch for a very, very long time because poor Ford ended up getting sucked in by the portal, throwing the journal to Stan just before the portal shuts off and getting trapped in another dimension for years to come. Consumed with guilt, Stan tried to find ways to reactivate the portal but couldn't without the other 2 journals. Eventually, he ran out of food and went into town. Desperate, he tried to buy food but had no money, but that's when the people inside the store started mistaking him for being Ford and even asked if he could give them tours of his house, since it was famous for being filled with all the weird and strange things inside. Stan was already a sly genius and agreed to give people tours in order to gain money, and even assumed his brother's identity by faking his own death in a car crash to further bury his old identity and his past. As a business, the Murder Hut, later renamed to the Mystery Shack, was first created by Stan Pines in an attempt to raise money to pay his brother's rent. He became known as Grunkle Stan, and his first tour was immensely successful, allowing him to survive, and he even ended up hiring Mystery Shack's 2 trusty employees, Wendy, the laid-back 15-year-old who'd rather do fun stuff than work, and Seuss, a trusty person who held the shack very dear to himself and had worked there since he was only 12. Since then, Stan lived in the Mystery Shack for decades, and at some point, he even added a museum to it. The Mystery Shack became a success over the years, but every night, Stan desperately tried to reactivate the portal to get his brother back. Luckily, Stan didn't have to spend this insufferable time alone, and sometime in June of 2012, 2 little twins and our very own main protagonists, Mabel and Dipper, came down to Gravity Falls for their summer. Yes, this is the time from where the show really starts. In the show, we don't really know who Mr. and Mrs. Pines are, and they're just briefly mentioned to have sent the kids for some fresh air. Some people even go as far as to speculate that the parents are actually getting divorced and have sent Mabel and Dipper away to avoid the complications. Now, that's pretty grim. However, we do know that Ford and Stan had another brother named Shermy Pines. Shermy Pines is actually Mabel and Dipper's grandfather, making Grunkle Stan their great uncle. Boom! Nevertheless, right at the start, Mabel and Dipper found themselves on their very first adventure in the crazy haven of Gravity Falls. And while Mabel adjusts with ease, believing that this is her chance to have an epic summer romance and goes on her boy-crazy obsession, trying to date many local boys, Dipper finds it difficult to get used to his new surroundings. One day, while Dipper was busy hanging up Mystery Shack's advertising signs in the Gravity Falls forest, Mabel finally meets a very mysterious character who says he is a teenage boy named Norman and starts dating him. Meanwhile, Dipper accidentally finds Ford's artificial metal tree in the forest, discovering the third journal detailing the town's secrets and dangers. Dipper discloses his findings with Mabel and also meets her new boyfriend, who he immediately begins to suspect, thinking he might be a zombie based on the information in Journal 3. Despite failing to find any incriminating evidence, Dipper confronts his sister, resulting in an argument. During Mabel's date, he notices Norman's right hand falling off on camera, which Norman suspiciously attaches back on, making him fearful that Mabel could unknowingly be in danger. Luckily, Wendy hands him the keys to the mystery cart and he quickly heads to rescue Mabel and realizes that Norman is actually made up of 5 gnomes stacked on top of each other, who had planned to kidnap Mabel and force her to become their queen. But soon Dipper also finds his interest at the Gravity Falls, when he falls in a big fat crush with Wendy, even though he does not really believe that they will be together because of their age gap. Regardless, he attempts to impress her and frequently finds himself in sticky situations. He also seriously resents Wendy's relationship with Robbie due to his jealousy. One time, while going about the mystery fair, Dipper and Wendy decided to play knock over the milk bottle game, and yikes, Dipper messed up pretty bad when he missed the ball and went straight for poor Wendy's face, giving her a black eye. Well, that must be a real deal breaker. And worse, she literally starts going out with Robbie, leaving poor Dipper heartbroken. Luckily, that's when they meet Blendin Blandin, a guy with a literal time machine. While Mabel sends the dude on a break to enjoy the fair, the twins steal the machine and travel 6 hours earlier to fix the mistake. Only it takes them quite some tries to get it fixed. Well, in the end, Dipper gets the deed done. However, this did make the fans speculate that Dipper might have continued to use this time machine to get closer to Wendy, since over time he really did get pretty close to her, but who knows. At one point, Dipper eventually reveals his feelings to Wendy, who gently lets him down and tells him that it's important to her that they remain good friends, and he readily accepts that. During one of their adventures, the twins even expose that Gravity Falls' supposed founder, Nathaniel Northwest, is actually not the one who found it. An entry in Journal 3 detailed Ford's discovery of a conspiracy behind the true town founder, and Dipper and Mabel then embark on a hunt that ultimately lead to the discovery of the Northwest cover-up. The founder was actually Quentin Tremblay, a goofy man that won the 1837 presidential election due to an actual landslide that killed all the other candidates, and became the president of the United States. Nevertheless, his policies were quite stupid, like when he issued the Depancipation Proclamation, proclaiming that pants are about restrictions, which goes against America's values of freedom. Okay, creep, but not just that, Tremblay also waged war on pancakes and appointed 6 babies to the Supreme Court. As you can probably predict, he was kicked out of the office and escaped to the Gravity Falls Valley by plummeting off a cliff on a horse at high speed. Tremblay then founded the town of Gravity Falls and wrote the town charter, and that is why it contains many odd rules. Nevertheless, sometime later, Tremblay encased himself in a block of solid peanut brittle, believing it to have life-sustaining properties, which it actually did. He left a trail of clues throughout the town that Mabel and Dipper followed, leading to a secret chamber under Gravity Falls Cemetery, where Quentin and many historical artifacts were stored. Behind his back, all references to Tremblay's time in office were erased from the historical records, and instead, a local idiot named Nathaniel Northwest was credited as the founder of Gravity Falls. Literally a waste-shoveling nobody turned figurehead mayor. Luckily, Mabel and Dipper free him from the peanut brittle, and the trio becomes quite good friends. Another time, they literally ran into an adventure with the very secret Blind Eye Society when Lazy Susan, a waitress at the Greasy's diner, becomes their latest victim. She is brought before the society after witnessing a group of gnomes that attempted to steal her pie. Damn, look at them, they're annoying as hell. But lucky for her, Dipper, Mabel, Seuss, and Wendy accompany Old Man McGucket into the Gravity Falls Museum of History, believing the society to be responsible for his insanity. The group gets into a confrontation with Blind Yvonne, and with its members now revealed to be several notable townspeople, the kids are almost robbed of their entire summer experiences. However, McGucket returned to rescue his allies, and together they defeated the society members. By August 2012, the Blind Eye Society was ultimately disbanded after its current members were ironically warped off their memories of any involvement with the organization. However, Ivan unfortunately suffers long-term memory loss, similar to the society's founder, likely because he had no life outside of the society. But while Mabel and Dipper are enjoying their summers, they are innocently unaware of the trouble lurking around. You see, the god of chaos is about to make a comeback, and it all starts with Gideon, seemingly the show's original antagonist, who plans to destroy the Mystery Shack and replace it with the Tent of Telepathy, his own little museum that's basically a knockoff Mystery Shack. You see, he isn't really buddies with Stan, but Stan's quite chill and assures Dipper and Mabel that Gideon will only take over if he breaks in and attempts to unlock his safe containing the Shack's deed. Yeah, right, because just as he said, they confront Gideon, who initially doesn't even take Stan seriously until the guy had to literally shoo him away with a broom. Stan then locks his precious deed in the safe, making Gideon beyond angry. That is when the show throws in a key moment, revealing that Gideon had the journal too all along, and in his rage he uses it to do the unspoken: summon Bill Cipher, the true villain. Gideon performs the ritual to summon the Dream Demon, and automatically Bill strikes a deal with him. He will invade Stan's mind, and Gideon is to help Bill with an unknown favor later on. Let me guess, destroy our world? Luckily, Mabel and Seuss witness the whole thing while hiding behind a bush and frantically rush back to the shack to tell Dipper. Dipper consults Journal 3 and soon finds the part where the journal warns of Bill as he descends upon Stan's mind. Luckily, they can prevent Bill's chaos by traveling into Stan's head, also known as his mindscape, and recite the necessary incantation. Inside, the gang explores a bit and meets Bill, who is expecting them. Mabel tries to tackle him, but instead goes into and right back out of the mysterious creature, while Dipper gets shot with a laser. Luckily, it didn't actually kill him and instead only creates a gaping hole in his stomach. Soon, the gang ventures into the psychological shack to search through Stan's memories, which include his time in a Colombian jail, being a door-to-door vacuum salesman, his disastrous date with Lazy Susan, and much more. While exploring, Dipper sneaks a peek at Stan's memories of him only to find Stan's true feelings about him, and boy, they were disappointing. Seeing all that, Dipper refuses to help him anymore, and without him, Mabel and Seuss tried their best to prevent Bill from giving Gideon the safe's code. In the heat of a moment, Mabel manages to shoot the memory of the code out of Bill's hand and into the bottomless pit, making Gideon call off the deal. However, that sends Bill into a fit of extreme anger. Look at that tiny little triangle throwing a fit at the acute angles of life. Meanwhile, as Dipper searches for an exit, he comes across the memory of Stan expressing his actual feelings toward Dipper. Turns out, Stan's only hard on him to prepare him to face the world like his father did to him. Dipper then realizes that he must stop Bill and rushes off. He arrives to see Mabel and Seuss being tortured with nightmares and quickly tells them how to turn their dreams into reality. The trio soon manifests their nightmares into weapons, but before they can take out Bill, he stops them. Bill tells them that they are clever and decides to let them live, thinking they will come in handy later. He then drops a bomb, warning them of an approaching evil and that one day everything they care about is gonna change, and then just leaves. That's cold. Just then, Stan wakes up, forcing Seuss and the twins out of his head. They are relieved to have gotten rid of Bill, but their relief is cut short as Gideon reveals that he used the dynamite to obtain the deed to the shack, which gives him ownership according to Gravity Falls' odd laws. All that trouble and the poor group is forced out of their home, but don't worry, they do get it back later, and Stan even gets his hands on Journal 2. Throughout this whole time, the twins keep the Journal 3 a secret from Stan and keep using it to guide them in their adventures. However, later on, they agree to reveal the journal to Stan, and the dude literally plays fake, feigning disbelief in the book's contents, and even confiscates it from Dipper to create new attractions. In reality, Stan hides the journal within his laboratory alongside Journal 1 and Journal 2. Having collected all three, he is now finally in complete possession of the knowledge he requires to activate the universe portal, hidden deep within the catacombs of the Mystery Shack. It is now time to bring Fort back. Stan immediately starts working on the machine. He rigs up some drums with toxic chemicals, not even caring if it's dangerous. But that does not end well for him, because soon the government gets to him. A heavily armored operator literally tackles the poor man as Agent Trigger and Powers come up, signaling the rest of the tactical team to secure the Mystery Shack. Dipper and Mabel are beyond worried and confused when the agents tell them that an unknown person stole toxic chemicals and they suspect that the culprit is Stan. They then proceed to put Stan in their car, send him away to be interrogated, and even plan to send the kids to child services. Mabel and Dipper do everything to prevent them from taking Stan away, but to no avail. The agents try to interrogate Stan, but Stan insists on making this one phone call and uses it to talk to Seuss through the walkie-talkie in his car and tells him to guard the vending machine with his life. Luckily, they find the video surveillance of Stan restocking the shelves and start to celebrate, realizing that he's innocent, and now they've got proof. Only this wasn't gonna last as a happy moment, because it's then that Stan suddenly leaves the shack, and several hours later, the footage shows Stan entering in full hazmat gear with the stolen chemicals. Not just that, but the kids even find a hidden box in the office full of fake IDs and passports, as well as a newspaper clipping with a headline saying Stan Pine's dead. Now that's a shock to the twins, who are now totally unsure if Stan is really who they think he is, and soon enough, they find a paper with the combination to the vending machine door inside the box. Meanwhile, Stan manages to escape the agents by taking advantage of a gravity anomaly generated by the machine he was trying to patch up with the chemicals. Back at the shack, curious as ever, the twins try to get past the vending machine when they are stopped by Seuss, making Dipper get into a tussle with him. Dipper wins and finally manages to input the code, revealing the secret bunker under the shack. Inside, Mabel, Dipper, and Seuss find Stan's secret lab. And upon discovering the other two journals, Dipper becomes mad. Stan had been hiding this and lying to them all summer. Angrily, he puts the books together to form the blueprints of the machine, and that's when his black light reveals a hidden message left by the author, warning of the machine's destructive potential. It turns out that if the machine is activated, it could destroy the entire universe. Determined to stop this disaster, Dipper then figures out how to engage the manual override, but just as he is about to do it, the guilty Stan finally makes an entrance. He begs them not to push it, pleading that he will explain, but Dipper absolutely refuses to believe him. Suddenly, another gravity anomaly occurs, lifting everyone up into the air. Mabel manages to make it to the shut-off button, with Dipper telling her not to trust Stan and push it. But Stan keeps begging Mabel to trust them and attempts to approach her, only to be restrained by Dipper and Seuss. Poor Stan asks Mabel if she really believes he's a bad guy, breaking the sweet girl's heart, and she finally lets go, trusting Stan and floating away from the override. Just then, the portal activates with a massive explosion and nearly destroys everything in the shack. And then, a mysterious man with a rifle over his back walks out of the portal. He places his hand on the first journal, revealing that he is, in fact, the six-fingered man, the author of the journals, and the long-lost brother. Finally, Ford has returned and greets Stan with a punch. Classic bros. With that, Stan explains everything to the twins about his and Ford's childhood, Ford falling through the portal and the creation of the Mystery Shack. Stan also admitted that he had to lie to everyone in town as he couldn't risk anyone learning the truth about the portal. Losing the portal would have meant forever losing any chance of getting Ford back. Dipper finally apologizes to Stan and forgives him, since even he wouldn't have believed his own lies. Unfortunately, the government agents overhear the gang talking downstairs and are about to head down towards the basement. Luckily, Dipper still has Old Man McGucket's memory eraser, and Ford uses the device to make a sound wave that wipes the memory of the government agents. He then pretends to be a government official and tells them that the readings they got were just radiation from an unreported meteor shower, and finally gets them off their back. With Ford back, Dipper actually gets quite close to him, since he's already been so inspired and immersed in the journals he had written. But Ford now has to resume his mission and prevent Bill from doing anything and everything he's planning on. He explains to Dip how the interdimensional rift's casing is cracking, and if it were to shatter, we can happily say goodbye to the reality, which would become totally twisted, causing the catastrophic event known as Weirdmageddon. Mind you, Bill Cipher would stop at nothing to make this event become a reality, and true to Ford's prediction, he even accomplishes it by possessing Blendin Blandin and tricking Mabel into giving him the rift. He then smashes the containment orb, causing the long-predicted event to begin, leaving Gravity Falls at his mercy. The final story arc begins as Bill finally obtains his long-awaited physical form and now has full control over Gravity Falls and all of the reality itself. 3 days into the event, the town is already unrecognizable, overrun with monsters, eye bats, and many other unworldly things, while Bill Cipher and his friends are having their little evil party. But they soon realize that their little celebration can't leave Gravity Falls, and that's when Bill has the bright idea of taking his chaos global. Yep, I'm talking about taking over the planet, the galaxy, and the universe. However, he isn't so bright and still needs his ex-puppet, Ford's genius, to spread his evil plan. Only Ford isn't about to relive his mistakes and declines it. So Bill attempts to get into Ford's brain, but not even he can get past the Mindscape's rules. Bill is free to haunt a person's dreams, but the only way into a conscious mind is for the person to shake Bill's hand and agree to let him in. Unfettered, Bill resolves to physically torture Ford, but even in pain, Ford absolutely refuses to give in. And now that's a man. Frustrated, Bill even captures Dipper and Mabel and threatens to kill one of them. This time, poor Ford reluctantly agrees and shakes the demon's hand, letting Bill into his mind. However, Bill is shocked to realize that he, the master of trickery and manipulation, has been deceived. He had not entered Ford's mind at all, but Stan's. Bill becomes terrified. He begs for his life and promises Stan anything he'd ever want, but nothing can sway Stan Pines, not even losing his own identity to save his family. Once Ford shoots his brother's mind away with the memory gun, Bill's form grossly distorts until Stan punches him and Bill vanishes from existence while his physical body is turned to stone permanently. With Bill finally destroyed, Weirdmageddon ends and the interdimensional rift fades away from existence, sucking up all of Bill's monsters and chaos back to where they came from and undoing the damage they had caused to Gravity Falls. Sadly, the memory gun also wiped out all of Stan's precious memories with Suze, Wendy, Dipper, Mabel, and his brother Ford. Mabel and Dipper are unable to get over this and try to find something to bring Stan's memory back, eventually stumbling across Mabel's scrapbook. She sits down with Stan and begins sharing the stories and memories of her time at Gravity Falls with him, and it works. Everyone begins to laugh and even Stan joins in as he puts his arms around the twins. Finally, the little family is reunited and Gravity Falls returns to normal. Mayor Tyler even gives a speech to the townsfolk announcing the Never Mind All That Act, which basically means that if anyone asks what happened to Gravity Falls in the past few days, the people must respond with "Never mind all that" or risk being tased. Meanwhile, the Northwest family literally goes broke since they had pledged allegiance to Bill and placed all money in weirdness bonds, which Bill had sold them to preserve the family's fortune. On the bright side, McGucket regained all of his memory and made millions of dollars patenting his inventions. So happy for him. And even Gideon decides to become a good boy. With that, Stan throws the twins their 13th birthday party and the whole town visits them. Soon, our little protagonists leave Gravity Falls as summer comes to an end, and as for the Pine brothers, Stan and Ford, they finally reconcile and get to live their dream of voyaging together, while our beloved Mystery Shack is left under the care of Seuss. So this was Gravity Falls and its timeline so far. If you enjoyed the video as much as we did making it for you, drop us a like and subscribe to our channel for more awesome tunes recapped on your feed. With that said, we'll see you in the next one. Peace!